of being on, I've had the experience of being sort of at both ends of this, and happily have been in some really complex programs where I was, I was cleaning tables, and that was a beautiful thing. So I just want to share some of that experience as well, and then hear from all of you too. So I think that, if we look at a volunteer program, part of it is identification of the personal skills and interests that would be needed for a program. Not only do we want to do it, but how we can really be successful in it. So, for example, if we're doing something around food, what kind of food, how much, when should it be prepared? Our meal program that Susan really speared, and that we will need again. We need buyers of food, we need preparers of food, we need setup, we need cleanup. How many, when does that happen? Just having some more thought around that. I think in the end, it makes the person organizing it feel a little more comfortable, and especially that they don't have to do all the work. But again, the fact that other people can say, okay, I can come for an hour and a half and help you clean up. That's all, and that's sure what you need, because you don't want people coming at the beginning and then having to stick around all the way to the end. For the volunteers, helping in identifying what special skills they can bring to an outreach program and what is important to them as they volunteer. For example, what do I like to do? Where do my interests lie? Maybe I can't be on site, but I can shop or I can bake. What else can I do? So stopping and thinking, I think some people do this more than others along the way. All of this is intended to be thoughtful about volunteers' needs and expectations, because without the volunteers, we really can't succeed. And I think that really needs to be a significant focus as we think of these programs. So this is both for those people that are organizing a program, but also current and prospective volunteers, with a strong focus on engaging all the wonderful people who give their time and talent to our community. And this is not just our parishioners, but it's other people in the community. It might be a friend or somebody that you've met who's not a part of the church, but would like to be involved in some particular program. And that, being able to say, I'm finding so much that when we are, and I'm not saying Christ Church, all of us, when we're specific about, can you do this one thing? Can you do this other thing? I mean, I will give you an example here where I live. One of my neighbors and I have been doing a lot of gardening. And we put together an herb garden, a rose garden, various stuff. We just enjoy it. She does the watering, I do the planting. And I just got an email from her, said, I'm taking a jug of water down the road so that we can water what you just put in. But she and I really talked out who was going to do what. And that was really very helpful, because she doesn't really have the experience I have in gardening. And she loves to do that piece of it. So it's really being very, very transparent and very communicative as you go through this process. So we're, again, planning and thought important for successful programs. A little bit, just a small amount about event identification, and with the vestry here, I think aligning with our mission, vision, and values, our goals, define a clear return on investment. And that doesn't have to be money, but it has to be some way of measuring the success of the program. Did we provide a service to a facility that needed food 3 times a year? Did we find clothes? Did we find specific things that we could give? And do we get feedback from that organization that said, true feedback that says, yes, this was good, or could it have been better? And again, defining, and I think that, sometimes we need to be a little careful in our scope of what we're doing and how we do it, and not spread ourselves too thin. I think we've done a fabulous job this year of really looking at needs. But I don't think those needs are going to go away over the course of the next couple of years. I think that, economics is going to change. Various health programs are going to go away, and all of a sudden there's going to be all sorts of things there. But just to stop and think, those of us who've gone through the business world, we're forced to do that up front, but just some way of how you measure success. If we were asked for 100 meals, did we get 100 meals? Did we get them on time? Did we get them to the right place? Were they prepared the right way? Some of that too is really good. And then obviously is to get buy-in from the church vestry as well as organization wide around what is being recommended. Because I think it's really critical that a vestry with responsibility for the operations of the church makes that sign off as you go. And I think your people are really good with that. Event organization. So you want to create some kind of a timeline, working backwards, plan out, lay out the actions that need to happen ahead of the event. Identify those specific activities. Identify the number of volunteers, and again, what specific talents those have. What needs to be done not only to recruit volunteers, but also once they become engaged in the program. How can we help to teach them what to do and let them do the work? Micromanaging is not the best thing for a lot of us, but helping them so that there's somebody, so they're doing it the right way. I love the fact that in a program that Ginny and I have been involved in the past, which involved a whole lot of food, dessert was one recipe, and there were a whole bunch of people who made it, but it wasn't bring chocolate cupcakes, it's bring that recipe of chocolate cupcakes. And talking to the person recently who ran it, she said, they still all tasted different, even though we had the same recipe. But again, having that level of organization, it really helps to reduce burnout of the same people doing the same thing over and over. And it helps us to engage new people and as well as learn new activities, because we should never stop learning. What particular materials are needed, how to communicate that activity internally, externally. I think we've got a great process of communicating outside of St. Paul, outside of Christ Church, of what we're doing. But I think we always have opportunity for more. And I think this is where we're going to start getting people that are not necessarily regular parishioners, but maybe they'll get involved because they want to do some particular activity. And we have so many different. I know we had some people who just wanted to provide food for the last time, Susan, that you did that program, and that was just great. So how do we get that message out? Talking next about the volunteers. Let me just stop for a minute, because I know we've got a lot of organizers in the group and we've got some time. So Susan, if you could unmute anybody, does anybody have any comments on what I've said from an organization perspective so far? Nope. Okay. Volunteer participation, which to me is the critical part. They're really the backbone for any nonprofit organization. They can fill very vital roles. I think everybody here is doing exactly that. Some of my research found that volunteer hour is worth an estimated $24 an hour, which to me is a significant amount. And then, not engaging them means that we can't do the programs that we want to do. We can't meet the goals and objectives, and we really lose some valuable resources. Successful volunteer engagement also has a positive impact on retention within churches as well as new membership. it's important to stop and think what makes a meaningful experience to a volunteer. And I think all of us can, from our own personal experience, think about some of those things. If we do that and keep them engaged, they're going to keep signing up for more activities. They're either going to continue to do the things that they really like, or they're going to potentially learn other things, want to learn something new, and maybe get more involved, and maybe step up and co-chair something that we want to do. So I see this as a long-term event. They do provide much needed skills that would help to push the church's mission further along. We won't know what some of those skills are until we, do that. Martine didn't know that I could grow roses until she, start talking to me. So it's good to just have those to really be out there thinking about that. They bring an enthusiasm to the organization, and they keep others engaged in the organization. And they also can provide very valuable feedback to optimize our processes and our procedures. So asking the right questions to a volunteer team, and to even within an organizational team, what type of volunteers do we need? What are the skills we're looking for them? How many hours will volunteers need to devote to an opportunity? Can the volunteers give that out thing, or do we tag team and say somebody is going to do this particular activity for an hour and a half and somebody else will come in and do it a little more? It means that we have to organize a little more and think about this. But I think that in the end, we engage the volunteer says, okay, I said I was going to work from 5 to 6:30. They were ready for me at 5. I could have gone home at 6:30. I stayed till 8 o'clock, but that's up to me to do as I go. We need to understand their behaviors. What is an ideal volunteer? I'm not sure I know what an ideal person is, but I think we need to think about that. This will allow us to create campaigns that target them and engagement strategies that appeal to their preferences. A few questions to consider is, why does Christ Church's mission, vision, values, goals appeal to a target volunteer? What are their values, their beliefs, their interests? Are there any time restraints that would prevent them from involvement in an opportunity or a particular part of an opportunity? What are they expecting to get from our opportunities? I'm not sure we ask questions like that from volunteers, and I'm not sure that people would necessarily be able to articulate that, but I think it's important for them to do so. And why would they want to help our organization? So the next step is talking about developing an engagement strategy based on these target volunteers, because once we understand who our target volunteer is and what is important to them, then the process of creating an appealing engagement strategy and ways to manage the volunteers becomes much easier. Put ourselves in the volunteers' shoes. Focus on strategies that will mean something to them. Remember that our aim is to create lifelong volunteers, to build relationships, increase retention rates, fulfill any other goals that we have identified. And remember, for each of our outreach programs, this is going to change a little bit. Some of them are very simple, some of them are very complicated. So but I think once we start thinking this way, it's going to be easier to create the buckets and to drop them down as we go. So a few volunteer engagement strategies to consider. One is to create volunteer specific, that's segmented outreach campaigns based on the skills needed and the type of activity. Record how the activity was successful, whether there's improvements needed. What are those? We always learn as we go forward. Show appreciation to the volunteers. Simple, but extremely effective. And provide prospects a wide range of involvement opportunities and leverage their skill sets. So people that we don't know well, we haven't necessarily worked with, still engage them, maybe something on a fairly simple basis, but then move forward, have some discussion with them. Did this work for you? Is this the kind of thing you want to do? Is there something else that you'd feel better at? Here's a couple things that we're working on. Are you interested in any of those? In closing, when this volunteer engagement becomes a strategy, the focus shifts from considering volunteers as just program participants to one in which the volunteers partner with Christ Church leadership to achieve our goals. Volunteers today seek meaningful work with a measurable impact. Research and experience shows that today's potential volunteers approach volunteering with a consumer mindset. If they don't find the type of meaningful volunteer opportunity they're seeking at one institution, they will leave, taking their time, talent, and passion elsewhere in search of a right fit. Today's volunteers are across generations want flexible schedule with shorter assignments. They seek to use their skills and/or gain new skills through volunteering. Ultimately, they want to make a difference. And I think this is where we have an opportunity to really provide them with that opportunity. So if you asked a volunteer about their experience with our church, what would they say? And Susan, if you could unmute everybody, I'd really be interested in hearing what people say and, you know, what.
You're muted, Betsy. Betsy, you're muted.
Okay, so I'm unmuted, but I think, okay, good. Everybody except Marcy and Tom are unmuted. So some things that if we ask some of our volunteers, what would they say right now? And what kind of does any of this resonate? Is any of this useful, what I'm talking about?
Well, I think the good thing is that we, Betsy, that we are involved in sort of very specific local, you know, efforts, whether it's the St. George's Supper, you know, it's very specific, you know, there are set dates in the year and people kind of know they're coming up. And I've got to, obviously we're in new territory with COVID, that's going to probably change, you know, go back, you know, to revert to how it was by the end of the year. But I would think people making it easy for people to do things, for example, like the Jessie tree, you know, just bring a gift, wrap it, you're just being very, very specific. I think that that's what people would say is good about what we do. You know, please bring, you know, a beautifully wrapped, you know, new item of clothing and have it here by a certain date. That's manageable for most people. And
Right.
you get a real sense of satisfaction that, you know, you see your thing under the tree and you know it's going somewhere 2 days later. And you can imagine, you know, what it's going to be like for somebody to open that on Christmas morning. I think that's really tangible help.
Mm-hmm.
People can really imagine that. The St. George's Suppers, most of us have been there and served the dinners, so we know how they're received. We see the sort of people, and so that's good. And we've exposed our youth to that as well in the past. So I think parents are always looking for a way to engage their children. For example, at Christmas, with the new with the social services, you know, buying presents for a single mum and her children, just by asking our rectory tenant if she was okay having Amazon parcels delivered. She said, "We've been looking for a way to donate.
Yeah.
We would love to do it." So people, you just kind of getting the word out there and letting people know it's as easy as just, you know, turning up with something, I think is good.
Yeah, just to bounce off of what Martine just said, I think like that's the big picture to this here is like getting people, more aware of things, because like I know like there's many of you, but like for me, like I always think of like people who organize volunteering as like certain levels. Like there's like the top person, then there's like people that take, that are kind of like the leaders in a certain category, and then a couple subgroups under them. And if you're in those subgroups under people, sometimes like you go and this is not specific to Christ Church, it's just things I've experienced, because I've never really led off volunteering. I've always been like, one of the helpers that come along. Oftentimes you're not needed, and then you're standing there and nobody really addresses you. And again, this is not Christ Church. This is just in general, especially if it's a big thing that somebody's doing. So like, I think I'm coming at it specifically from that perspective of somebody who would love to get more involved in things, but doesn't like maybe get the bigger message all the time, or has gone to various things and kind of felt like, oh boy, they don't really need me. Like, how do I leave like here, as quietly as possible? Like, I think like, for a lot of you that are here, you've always been the ones to head it off. So it's kind of like, how do we bring in more people who truly want to get involved, people who might have like some anxiety around it, for that matter also, and also like younger people and people out in the community. Does that make sense? Like what I'm saying? Because I think like to the people I'm seeing here, you guys have really been the ones heading it off. So I don't know, I think your perspective is one of leadership, and so you're always involved and always feel like you fit into whatever you're doing. But like there's people that might really want to become more involved and just have some anxiety around it, for lack of a better word.
I think that's what happened when you, with the Apple Festival, we lost people who were running it, some because one moved away, but they were trying to do it all and then just burnt out. And so when Jody and I were starting to do it, we tried to divide it up, saying, okay, you're in charge of the bake sale area, you're in charge of the kids area, and then you get your volunteers and sort of, customize, get people involved in that area. And so that you're not, the cheer people are not doing it all. If you're in charge of the tent, the Flater, food tent, and you're in charge of the food and the people that are volunteering there. The only thing that I see that's happened in the past is we have a sign up sheet, very organized. You sign up for the times, you sign up where you want to be, but they're top heavy in certain areas. And it's because our older population, the parishioners, they can't sit there for 2 days for 8 hours. It's just too much. So they give what they can, but they have to be where the food is, under a tent in a chair. And some people sign up for a certain area, like Susan said, and then they show up and find out they're not needed because you can't get people to volunteer somewhere else. I've had people tell me, no, they are not going to go to the kids area because they don't want to be there. It's just too much work. So you rely on the kids in the church to help you, but no one's supervising them. So you're butting heads. So I know Susan has come and she's like, I signed up for this area, but nobody needs me. But somebody they need help in the parking lot, but nobody wants to go to the parking lot. So, you've got 2 men running the parking lot for 2 days straight, and it's too much. So I don't know, how we move forward with a festival. Maybe you're back to 1 day, not 2 days. And we have to rethink trying different things so that it's not overwhelming, because we don't have I don't know what the population,
people power.
The people power. I don't know, a few people have left that we,
I think our biggest challenge though, Lisa, is getting our younger families engaged. And, we all did it, might have been screaming and kicking on occasions, but we did it. Once we were hooked,
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah,
You know, so we, you know, it's getting the, you know, our new families
yeah.
on board.
I think we were getting there and then COVID came.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like our
Right,
last
yeah,
Apple
they were getting
Festival, you know, our last Apple Festival, we changed things up. But what I tried to explain to people, if you don't like the way we did it this year, we can do it differently. Let's just try new things.
Yeah,
And if it doesn't work out, you don't do it again. But people seem to be angry. So, but we had a lot more participation with the younger families. And I feel bad because Jenny, I stuck her in the kids area, but she was really good at cracking that whip.
But
so
my frustration with that was I was there at 9 o'clock in the morning, ready to work. And there was, and I won't mention names, but an older couple said, well, we always do this. We didn't think we needed to sign up. And I'm like, well, here I am. You know,
that's it.
Yeah.
Jane came in and said, oh, you're not working? And she immediately found stuff to do. And then I got, you know, and I ended up staying late because we didn't have anybody else for the kids area, you know, but it worked out okay. But my thought was, you know, if you've got a volunteer, make absolutely sure there's something for them to do as soon as they get there, because nothing's more
Right.
frustrating than making, you know, changing your schedule, getting up early, getting there, and then it's like, oh, this is already covered. And I'm like, well, then I may as well go home.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly what
and that
happened.
happened,
Yeah.
and that happened, and this is not just Apple Festival. I think
No.
Apple Festival is sort of a symptom. We could be doing Orange Festival, or we could be doing, you know, whatever it is, St. George's food. And I think this is the symptom that then this is the sort of dynamic, the group dynamic that you can kind of get into a rut. And then the folks that are sort of there say, oh, well, no one else volunteers, and why aren't the young people coming? And then the young people come, or other new people come, and then they're going, I tried, but everyone said they had it already. So then I left. And then they are not going to come back, because it's true. There's nothing more frustrating. And Ginny and Susan, you're not the only ones. I've heard this dynamic from on the receiving end. So they're saying there were people that were just trying desperately to volunteer in certain places, and they kept getting turned away. Meanwhile, the people who were turning them away were frustrated and overwhelmed. And so I sort of had to go, stop. Like, you need to literally pull back, walk away, and let this person, you know, do the work. And if they don't know how, breathe for 5 minutes and teach them how. And what ended up happening is then you got people, you know, doing work and getting really involved and feeling valued in that process. And so I think that's a dynamic that it doesn't matter what we're doing, that we really, I think this sort of workshop kind of helps to lift up and you know, the concept of like a new engagement volunteer strategy, I think is really kind of what we need. And it's not even about the event or the volunteer activity. It's about this dynamic of empowering and equipping new volunteers, which means also stepping back, training, engaging, all these things that Betsy's outlined here.
There are
The other
two
thing,
types
too,
of
is-
volunteering, though, aren't there? I mean, there's the sort of the
Yeah,
where you're, you know, wrapping presents and bringing them and putting them under the tree, and
right.
then you've got the physical, you know, bodies on the ground, you know, buttering bread and making sandwiches, and you know, it's trying to see where people fall in that, you know.
But also, if there's something you want to try that you're maybe a little afraid of, it's nice to know there's somebody with experience that will help you to learn. And then you may find out you have skill you didn't know. Or you may find out you don't like it, next year you'll do something different, you know. But I mean, I always thought I was not good with kids, except my own. And, you know, and Lisa was like, oh, you were great with them. So, you know, that gave me a little bit of confidence.
Yeah. Yeah, Lisa, I feel like you and Jody did a great job, like, you know, delegating out to leaders. And then it was sort of that next tier down where, you know, it was good. You weren't involved in that. That would have been micromanaging, but it was like that next tier down that I think sometimes that's where
Mhm.
you know, finding ways to equip the really new people.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
it
think-
Yeah.
well, it makes sense, like, who had said, like, a lot of the older parishioners are like, oh, this is where we always are. So like, they're not even thinking they need to sign something up. Jenny, I think you said that,
Yeah.
you know, but that's what complicates things, a simple thing like that. And then it's all thrown off for everybody else, you know. And like I said, I come from it from the perspective of being like the groundling helper, you know, so this is like very common to that role of volunteer, and you know, hopefully I'll, you know, start to do more now that I'm in a different position, but that's very common, like what happens to the person like at that level.
Yeah, because some people ask you,
Numerous
will
things I
ask
could
you,
talk to
well,
about
sometimes
that.
people will ask you, what can I do to help? And then when you tell them what you need, and they're like, no.
Yeah.
Who told you that? Because I asked, like, I asked everybody before I finally left once. Like, I mean, I went around asking everyone, like, who says no? Like, I wouldn't have said no to
Yeah.
something.
Well, you know, you don't want to treat people like children, because when I brought Colin and his friends to St. George's, I'm like, you do whatever Martha tells you to do, you know? And she's like, unload the car, load the car up, and you stand by the dessert table and you fill the cups. And they were like, okay. But adults, you know, they're used to working in their particular area, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and
But
Well,
again,
and-
it's not a criticism either of anything. It's just
Yeah.
kind of like what, like Jane had said, it's kind of like the symptoms of things that often, like in many volunteering kind of opportunities.
Places, yeah, it's not just Christchurch, as you said, Susan. This is like
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
group gets into this, every single one gets into
Yeah.
this dynamic, and it's sort of like carving a new strategy that then can, and we're one step there. Like we said, you know, a lot of people, we've gotten this like this sort of lots of leaders,
Yeah.
and now it's just about like, you know, empowering people, you know, who come and want to show up and just sort of fit in.
You don't want to turn people away, because when we offer it to the public, to the high schools, and the kids need it for volunteer hours.
Right.
You know, I've had parents call me and say, well, my son can't work in the food tent because he's got nut allergies. He's too young to work with kids. I'm like, well, he can sell plants, he can sell, he can't, she told me all the things he couldn't do. So I said, well, I stuck him with Martha, I think, with the plants, because that was the only allergy he didn't have.
Yeah.
You know?
How many kids come, like, just using the, because it's a good one to talk about, like the Apple Festival, how many kids actually end up volunteering? And that might be an area that just needs tightening up as to like who it's even offered out to, maybe.
We offered, well, Sacred Heart always, the last few years, is, Becky, was it bowling? Yeah, the bowling team. She reached out to us because her athletes needed volunteer hours. So she usually starts out with 30, and by the time the Apple Festival comes around, she can maybe send 8. And you have, they have to get rides, and, because things come up and the kids can't participate. So they can only do one day, 4 hours. So 8 will show up, and then you just try to, divvy them up into pairs. And then the high school kids, sometimes, kids' friends just show up, and there could be 5, 10, but they all want to be together.
Mhm.
They all want to be like in the kids area, which is fine, but then you halfway through the day, you've lost them all.
Yeah, I think that's I think what you just said there is one of the biggest things around like a bigger volunteer thing is that people just show up. Right.
Yeah.
And somehow
They
like
kind of need to be involved before we get there, don't they? They have to sort of have a sense of fellowship
Maybe come to a meeting.
before we get there.
Mhm.
Those of us who come to the Apple Festival meetings, we've got it. But, if people show up, they don't really know each other. You've got green people right there. Whereas if there was a bit of interaction before the big, the day, the event, whatever it is, then you've kind of engaged people before that and given them a sense of
I know
Like
it's
a
hard to
rally
get,
event, like a
yeah,
rally event or
rally
something,
event.
like
And
just
it's
a
hard to-
fellowship time.
And it's hard to get people, when we do need them, is really helping to set up and break down
Mhm.
Friday, Sunday,
I know,
because the kids all have,
everyone's tired.
they're tired, or they have jobs, or they have sporting events. So, because, you know, we're not getting any younger.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, Betsy, like I have two things I'm wondering here. I want to make sure everyone has a chance to talk, who hasn't yet. But also, Betsy and Susan, I just wonder what our next steps, our actionable next steps are. And I'm very excited about a new engagement strategy. I wonder if you think that might be a good next step to sort of really develop an engagement strategy that every single time we have any event, Apple Festival, St. George's, Foggies, whatever it is, you know, that if we're asking for volunteers, these are the things that you need to do to help with engagement. I don't know.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think we will learn as we go. But I think some of the things that I've laid out in terms of the way of thinking about things would be helpful. But I think also, you know, I'm happy to, and I'll speak for Susan, to walk with them part of the way through this as well, to help. Some of them are not going to need it. Some of them are going to. But I mean, I literally can create a worksheet that says, okay, for your activity, what are all those things you need to do? When are you going to do them?
Yeah.
You know, what volunteers do you need? What kind of, because I think it's really nice the way this was set out, that it really clearly defined these are the steps that would need. And I, you know, if I was doing one, that's what I liked about this. These are the kind of things. And I sort of validated this with this friend of Ginny and ours, who does a family table at St. Paul's, which is so complicated and runs so smoothly that you go in there, you don't even begin to think how much has gone on behind. And yet when you go and visit her, she will, I mean, she's got binders and boxes of stuff. It's all thought through. So, you know, helping people, not making it scary. I don't want to make this to be a project management, though it is project management, but I don't want to make it that way. But I just want to be able to help people, because I think in that way, then the organizer is not going to end up doing all the work. And the volunteers are going to feel that their skills are being used at the right time in the right place. And I think, you know, what Lisa talks about around the Apple Festival, that's a very complicated, for the one time that I worked there, that's incredibly complicated. And looking at, it's painful for you people to do this.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, you have pride, but it's painful. So how do you get past that and do some of that other? So I think that some of this, and we can try it out on some, you know what, Susan, we can try it out on your St. George's dinner thing. And just because I know you've talked about this, and you know, but just lay it out a little more and then use that as an example for others going forward.
Well,
As we
St.
think of-
George too, like what I did was a first time thing, like doing it all online because of, you know, COVID, but Mark is like, you know, hugely involved with that. I think people that are hugely involved are, my assumption based on, you know, what people have said is that certain people can no longer do it, i.e.
Mhm.
Martha, who, you know,
Yep.
did everything for it, you know. So Mark, maybe you could speak to that, like, you know, with St. George, because I volunteered there a few times and it's worked out. Like there's always been, but that's, you know, it's almost been a situation where there's a few too many, you know, like, so like, yeah, I think it's just tightening things up, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
Well, my thoughts on everything is that first you need to take and assess who you have for volunteers. And, you know, right now, with the way the church is running because of COVID, we don't really have a very good idea of that. I mean,
Correct.
we could talk about apple festivals in the past. You know, for those of us who were here 20 years ago doing apple, we had a lot more people. We have a
Yeah.
lot less people in this church, period. So therefore, anything we do has become more of a burden on all the volunteers. Now, I have no, you know, I think setting out a strategy for volunteering, that's terrific. But we really have to assess where we are and what we can take on, period. You know, the Apple
agree.
Festival, as we have run it before, I don't know. I don't know if we have enough people, to be perfectly honest with you. So, I mean, we did 2 days because we didn't want the financial ruin when one day, you know, we had bad weather.
Yeah.
And but maybe we just need to rethink the whole thing into a much smaller experience. I mean, I don't even know if we can make apple pies. I mean, I hear, you know, our source for apples is kind of non-existent at the moment.
I
So
have a solution. I have a little manual machine that will do all that.
They
Well,
did
that's how-
that once.
We used
That's
to
how it
do
used to
it.
be
We
done
used to
here.
sit there and core and
Yeah.
peel the apples back in the old worldy days
yeah.
I
It's a
did
really
ask Martha
valid
with
about
a bottle of
though.
wine.
It's a really valid point though, and I feel like it's a
valid.
really,
Yeah.
really important point to say, you know, I'm both hearing Susan saying, well, sometimes, you know, 20 people show up for a job of 5 or 10, and then we have things like Apple Festival where it's a job of 100 or more.
Yeah.
And you know, in our church our size, that might just be too big of an event for us to be taking on, and still have it be something that is nourishing and achieves those outcomes that our volunteers are looking for, and that we are all looking for when we engage in something. And so, you know, I mean, Lisa, we had a big brainstorming. There's some fun things coming down the pike, I think.
Yeah, we'll try.
But yeah, this year it's going to be different. But I do really love, Betsy, this concept of sort of project management, and I'm just sort of thinking like, you know, yes, Martha kind of was the one, and you'd go and just say, listen to what Martha has to say. But I think, you know, at this point, it's sort of worth picking her brain and Mark and others who've really done the work to say, okay, yes, when we get there, we need one person to unload, you know, I don't know what it is, but one person to unload the cart. We need one person to do this. And then when you're signing up in those little sign up genius, it could be a teenager, it could be, you know, someone who any age who says, oh, I'll do the heavy lifting, that'll be good exercise, or, you know, whatever. So I think that is that what you're kind of talking about, Betsy, with sort of project management and sort of just saying, I'll be your project manager, I'll write out all the roles, all the time commitments, get people to sign up.
Right. Right.
Kind of circle back around. How was that experience for you?
Right. And just, you know, help. I'm sorry, Jenny, and just tell people to, because it'll become second nature. I mean, I literally do my gardening this way now. So, you know, it's just that kind of a thing, but yes.
Well, like Mark said, the Apple Festival, when I started volunteering, it was a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
But you had a lot more volunteers, and that was 15, you know, years ago or whatever. So now you don't have the volunteers that we had.
Right.
And it's a lot of work. And I understand, because setting up for just one day, which is just too much work. So they made it into 2 days. And, you know.
But I think, Lisa, you know, this goes to the heart of being able to pass to capture the organization and the things that need to be done. Because as each of us gets older, moves on, we want to be able to leave it for somebody else to do. And I think that's part of what you're saying is, you know, we know the pieces, but we've lost the help. But then the question is, okay, now where do we go find, if that's what you're going to do, where are you going to find that help? So, you know, I think it's a little more, it creates more organization, which is not always the greatest thing. But I think in this case, this is a good opportunity, as there's such transition not only in the parish, but, you know, generally within these kinds of organizations. It's huge, and we're all feeling it.
Yeah.
Ginny, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
I was going to say two things I think we need to keep in mind is, you know, maybe 20, 30 years ago, you didn't have two career families. You had usually a husband that worked and a wife who had maybe a job. But, you know, like my own daughter, she wants the kids to learn about, you know, I finally got them to come to PJ Church, but she says, Mom, Saturday morning is the only time I can sleep in or we get stuff done or whatever. So, you know, because she and her husband both have full-time careers, and, you know, and then with 3 kids. So,
And all the activities.
yeah. So one of the things is to be aware that people aren't as eager to volunteer. But the other thing is, when people see the same people over and over, I think they're afraid to volunteer because, you know, well, if I say I'll be there for 2 hours, am I going to get
Be there
stuck
for
with
200
this forever,
years.
or am I going to be there all day?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
true.
knowing that, you know, if I say I'm going to be there from 1 to 3, and then I can go home, I'm not going to be said, well, you know, we really need somebody from 3 to 5, and, you know, we'll guilt you into it. And, you know, they
Right.
need to be able to block their time so that they can accomplish what they need, you know, project manage their own lives.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but
Yeah.
however, most of the things we do are not as big as the Apple Festival.
No.
Okay, they're putting on dinners. It's not, you know, I believe in project management. That's fine. But most of the stuff isn't rocket science. It's establishing, you know, what you want to do for an Italian dinner, and it's not that complicated. Writing it all out and having the volunteers, that's great. And I think, and those are small things. There's a pretty set time limit on those things. You know, going out and buying the stuff and preparing it is, that usually falls onto a smaller subset. But the people who usually volunteer for that smaller subset, you know, have done it before and know it. And they always ask for younger people. What we really need is to get more people involved.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
I would say
Yeah.
for the past 5-10 years, most of the people doing the things are the same people who are doing it with a few add-ons.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really the big piece to doing this whole thing, Mark. Again, like just coming from like what I was able to do and seeing what other people were doing. And like Ginny, what you had just said, it's kind of interesting because like I can relate to all that because I got into my teaching career late. I was needing my mornings, to, you know, prepare to be a new teacher, like at a time when it might have been assumed that I would have had more time. So it's kind of, you don't really know what people's stories are, but people do want to help. And then, like you said, Ginny, also, like they see the same people doing it. And that could be that, you know, you don't want to like get swallowed up into having to volunteer a lot of time, but it also is like, oh, they've got it. There's also that kind of perspective that can come.
True.
Do they, you know, they seem to have this, you know, that could happen a lot of times too. And that's exactly the reason for doing this, is because as the church gets smaller, it's like, how do we do these things really meaningfully, you know, and maybe even grow the church from it, like by reaching out to the community and et cetera.
Right.
The other thing I was thinking with like the St. George suppers, there are different levels to volunteer. Like I usually can't go to the supper, but I'm happy to buy stuff and bring it, you know, so at least I feel like I'm contributing. You know, I would like to
We used
go.
to have
and
the
I will,
kids
but-
make the you know, J2A group used to
Yeah.
make meatloaf. That, you know, so we involved the kids on the Sunday after church in that way. I mean, personally, I like doing the washing up. So I've always got my little job in
Dishwasher.
washing up. But, you know, somebody else might like doing that. And I might have to go out into the front lines and, you know, fill up the salad bowls. I wouldn't mind, but I do like my washing up. So people have ideas about what they, you know, like to do. And it's good to be specific, but then with the Apple Festival, which is our major, you know, wingding event of a normal year, those sign-up sheets are there for weeks and weeks with time-specific slots and jobs. Do you want to help with the face painting? Do you want to help with the bakery? Can you help with the parking? What time can you put it? You couldn't be more specific. And it is the habit of our church, and I am as guilty of this as anybody else, probably, you know, people don't sign up to the last minute, or they expect you to be telepathic, and they think, well, so, it's understood. So, that's the key frustration if you're an organizer, is people don't convey that they're actually really going to,
Communication.
yeah.
I
Well,
want to make sure we hear from, oh, sorry, Betsy, but I just
No,
want to
no,
make
you
sure
go-
we
you
hear
go ahead.
from
You go ahead first.
Tom and Marcy and Jessica. If you guys have anything, I don't want to put you on the spot. You can totally pass, but as you listen to this workshop and discussing this dynamic, if you have thought.
Hi, everybody, and it's nice to meet you all. And
Good to have you.
Yeah.
you.
Nice
So
to
I'll
meet
just
you.
say that I'm new here, obviously, and I stumbled onto Christ Church during the pandemic when I was saw the Facebook Live and started reading about your church. And the thing that inspired me, beyond what Pastor Jean was saying from the pulpit, was to read about your mission and when you talk about the message of the gospel of social justice, and social justice is written in the bright lights of the gospel, that's what sets a fire in me. So from the perspective of what I would be happy to volunteer for and why, it's because I feel compelled to put my faith into action. And what does that look like? We can be and I think that people will be motivated by that type of a message to say, whether it's supporting the church, which the Apple Festival would do, ultimately everything can be tied to this. But I get motivated I've been over to St. George's many times because I'm a member on the board of Nourish Bridgeport, and we went every single Thursday for their Feel the Warmth dinner. And, it's sort of like being in kinship with those folks. That's what motivates me. So from the perspective of volunteering or wanting to support what you're doing there, I believe in your mission. And so it impels me to want to support, whether it's financially or showing up or whatever I can do. We dropped off some food when there was a call for that, whatever it is. So I think that there's other people that might be similarly inspired. And I just want to say that I think that your little church is wonderful. And I'm very grateful for the experience I have had for the last 3 months watching either on Zoom or on Facebook Live. And that mission statement, what you are talking about doing, when it's whether it's social justice, feeding the hungry, all the things that are in Matthew 25, feeding the hungry, giving drink to the thirsty, clothing the naked. These are the things that we're supposed to be doing, and it motivates me to do that. Also, the stuff that you're doing in the equity and justice space is also great stuff, I think. So I just wanted to say what inspires me and what will prompt me to volunteer and to support this church, because I think that you're doing some really great stuff there. Thank you for it.
And I think, Tom, what you say just grounds us, and we have to hold on to that ground all the time. We can start thinking in various directions. So thank you very much for that from me.
So if there's something that you need, I told Mary Ann this and Pastor Jane, but I mean, I'm happy either financially or in person to try to support any of this good stuff, because I think that it is putting our faith into action. And that's, at the end of the day, I know that that's much more how people are going to see our faith than just if we say we're Christian. But if they can see that we're Christian by what we do, I think that is meaningful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. That was perfectly put.
So glad to get the chance to meet you at last, Tom, and Marcy. She was fleeting fleeting
Back and forth.
Because our 3 dogs don't like it when we don't pay them attention. They
Yeah.
expect our full attention at all times, so they're acting up.
baby.
So Marcy went upstairs to try to keep them happy, and she's
You
up.
can probably hear mine
She's
snoring down at my feet,
She's
right?
definitely the better half of this this duo. So
Oh,
Yeah.
Aw. Thanks.
So I just, I thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to be on this call. And I echo Tom's sentiments about, at the end of the day, we really have to, remember as volunteers what it is we're really doing, what it is we're really doing and the mission of it. And I worked for a large parish for 11 years. So every single thing you all are saying about volunteers and leaders burning out and people just holding on to their volunteer opportunity, year after year after year, I feel all of that. I was nodding my head in agreement with everything about that. And when you have to reimagine something like the Apple Festival, that's such a part of the fabric of your community, and you have to reimagine it now, it's really hard for people. They think about what it was, but they forget what it took to get there, sort of. And now it has to just look different. And it's really hard to, help them see that this can work, this has potential. It may not, turn out the same way this year. You may have to give it a couple of years to sort of, to see it come to fruition. But I think that what the opportunity that COVID gives you is that you can say, we have to reimagine this now. We cannot do it the way it used to be. And that eases the pain a little bit, I think, of that. So that would just be what I would say is that, I'm experiencing that now in the church that I work at. We have to look at things differently. And it's hard, but if people want to gather and to do things for their parish, they'll do it. I mean, they'll go kicking and screaming, but at the end of the day, after it's all over and they look back at it, they'll be like, wow, that was, we never even thought we could do it that way, but it's so if there's a good thing about COVID is that it gives you that sort of in to sort of say, we have to do things differently.
Yep. Good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
Mark, did you want to add anything before I give this over to
Jessica?
Lisa to talk about?
Jessica.
Sorry.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Mark or Jessica or whoever.
I still get that that newbie nervousness. Like, how am I gonna contribute to this if, since I'm still so new to everything and I've never been to Apple Festival and a lot of the events the church holds. It's always Ginny, what's going on here? Text.
Yeah.
Ladies,
Jessica, don't feel bad. I feel that way too. And I've been here a very long time. So yeah.
But I've been trying to think, how do we get more volunteers and me getting involved is still so new. And, I had reached out to Marianne and she connected me with Jane. And when I first joined the church and, we had a long conversation about really my story, like my background, where I was coming from, all of that good information. And then Jane had brought it straight to me with the volunteering and trying to get me involved in the church. And I'm almost thinking, like, instead of making announcements, I feel like there needs to be this group effort to like specifically talk to somebody. Like, we know the people who go to church. Obviously, I don't know a lot of people as well as y'all who've been part of the church for years, and the other people who have been part of the church for years. But, you know, reaching out directly to somebody and saying, you know, I really think that you would be fantastic for this, and you're so good at this. I think you should volunteer for this, and just making them feel really good about themselves and giving them that encouragement, and knowing what people's strengths and weaknesses are and how we can benefit from their strengths. And I mean, I feel like at the end of the day, you just can't feel bad about volunteering if you help somebody in the long run. So
Yeah.
we
No,
have to show them that impact that they're going to have too. Like, oh, you know, you would really be helpful with this, and then the result would be this. Does that make
For me,
sense?
it's all about the fellowship as well, though. I
Yeah.
mean, because all of that is magnified when we're doing things together. There's a real sense of camaraderie. And I think we kind of need to do a bit more of that, just to sort of gel us together more as a, you know, as a group. And
What
you know,
about
then
people who aren't very social though, and are super shy and don't like, I mean, they're, yes, I love to talk, and I know there's others here who love to talk and be around other people and just be close, and, you know, all be one big happy church family. But there are some people that just drives panic in them. And I think we need to, you know, with certain people, be able to reach out to them on an individual basis and find where they can volunteer, where they're not going to have to be forced into fellowship and be forced into social situations that might panic them.
Yeah, that's, Jessica, I agree. That's what I was alluding to before. And I do think I agree with you totally. If somebody reaches directly out to me, it makes me so much more comfortable. You know, because I'll like get it in my head sometimes, like, oh, they probably just don't really need my help, and just leave it there.
Well, that's like with the elders in the church, they asked if they could make pies during the day because they can't drive at night. I said, absolutely. You know, if you want to get together on a Thursday and make pies, that's fine. The quilters. You know, if we need something where envelopes need to be stuffed and flyers, that can be done. Those are things that they can do. And they don't have to worry about evening events and not being able to participate.
I'm kind of wondering, did we say till 7? I just want to be speaking of boundaries. And
we did. And Lisa was supposed to have.
It'll be quick. It'll be quick.
Talk about
fundraising. Okay.
So thank you, Jane. Yes.
No,
I was just gonna say, can I quickly add just one thing before you go, Lisa? So I'm just kind of hearing like lots of different really great ideas about sort of a new strategy forward. And I think kind of Tom and what you sort of said was like, you know, having something that really motivates me is really important. And then, you know, Marcy, you were kind of just, I think, normalizing, which thank you, because I can't say enough, like this is a normal phenomenon. But then Jessica, and I don't know, Tom, you may know of the, or others may know of the phrase that's used in community organizing, and I'm not remembering it right now, but something like resource mining, where you're talking to people to assess what are their motivations, what are their talents, what are their interests, and so yes, we would ask people to come to certain things, but actually I'm almost hearing that it might be good to make individual phone calls just to sort of the parish and say, hey, we're calling you not for a specific volunteer event, but actually to know what motivates you. You know, what would you really be excited about doing? Anything. I mean, not doing, but what is the thing that motivates you? Is it helping, you know, those who are hungry? Is it helping children? Is that, you know, if you were to think of anything, you know, and not worry about, you know, the amount of time you have or the other pressures you have, what are the things that you're really passionate about, and talents that you have, and things like that. Yeah. Tom, I don't know if
Yeah, I think all of those things are very, because once you feel connected to the church and to the organization, you're going to want to be supportive of whatever it is. And sometimes, you know, whoever is on the other end of that call, sometimes they have to, you know, challenge, and if it's the right opportunity. I know that in the past, somebody has said to me, I'm going to push you out of your comfort zone. That person had to have confidence that they could do that with me, but it worked, you know. So sometimes it's just, you know, having those conversations and seeing where they lead. The only other thing I'll throw out there, and I don't know if anybody's looked at it, but the one church around here that is just exploding in growth is that Fairfield Congregational Church. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing over there, but I just saw a video that somebody said they've gone from 1,000 in the pews every Sunday to 3,000. I mean, it's amazing what they're doing, and they're doing something in terms of connecting with people.
And they do everything.
They have concerts.
They do everything.
Yeah.
It's an evangelical church.
Yeah.
I know one thing that I saw over there just by going to Trader Joe's is they, you know, when I drove by there, they have people out there in the parking lot meeting people as they get out of their car and greeting them over there. And there's a lot of connection. And I'm not,
ministry.
I'm not the expert on this, but there's something going on there.
They have volunteer workshops, because my girlfriend goes there. There's so many cars that they have to learn how to direct traffic.
Yeah.
You know, because it's on the busy road, and there's a lot of, you know, you might have I don't know how many cars, but there could be 400 or 500 cars that come there for an event. So,
and they're very, there's a huge amount of support to the parishioners. So, you know, children, young moms, all those things. There's a lot of the building that they've done has been secondary classrooms and all these other programs that they have going. So it's not just, you know, Sunday worship. It's 7 days a week.
Classes and stuff. Yeah.
Huge amount of stuff.
Yeah. So they pour, I mean, that's a thing that's really important to churches too, is that you want to pour into the community and do the outreach. You don't want to do either or. You don't want to get so insular, but you also don't want to only be outreach, because then you're, you know, you start to burn out. Yeah.
Okay, Lisa.
Looking at successful churches is a good idea too.
So Lisa, based on that, how can we pour out to the community?
Well, we had a fundraise. We had a meeting on the 25th of May, and we came up with some ideas. I know that you and Susan had mentioned to me that about funding for outreach programs, just money to buy things for St. George's Supper. So there's small things we could do. Jessica offered to, we talked about hosting a trivia night. And we could say that's for St. George's Supper. You hold it in like the month before or whatever. And then we looked into 2 restaurants. Echo is not going to be open to the fall. They're behind schedule. That's the old Marissa's. So there's no really? So they're behind schedule. So I spoke to the managers, but you can't discuss having an event there until they're open. And Republic's said that we could use they have a side room that holds 35 people, but they also hold their own trivia night on Wednesdays. So they said you could have Tuesdays and Thursdays, but you have to spend at least $400. So that's drinks, appetizers. So you'd need to have the 35 people. But so, and then if you host it on a Sunday, it's 1,500 is the minimum. So we wouldn't do that, but just things like that we could say, or you have the trivia night in our new Uppercroft. And and Jessica offered to, I don't know, be the mistress of ceremonies. I don't know what you call the trivia master, but she said that she could do it. So we're trying to find fun things, fellowship, but also ways to raise money in not big events, but maybe a few small events where we could say this money's going to go towards whatever the need is.
That's nice.
whatever we're gonna for
Well,
outreach. And so,
with
Uh-huh.
sorry, real quick, with the Uppercroft, I mean, can't we just have people bring food and drink?
oh yeah, you could do that.
before
Yes.
the kitchen
Yes.
being open?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
Look-
oh no, that was just an idea to go out, it doesn't always have, just to try something different, but
yeah.
the new Uppercroft. And then we back to potluck dinners with the 50-50 raffle. And then Jessica had mentioned with social media doing Giving Tuesday, Giving Tuesday, which is after Thanksgiving, where you'd ask people to donate. I don't know if it's a given amount, Venmo Fridays or $5 Fridays, and just advertise through the church and Instagram and Facebook. And that's ways of, raising some money for our outreach. And also registering with Amazon Smile. We have looked into all of those. The Venmo Fridays, you have to have a personal account, and that personal account cannot be linked to a church account. It's not, I wouldn't legally do that. So I don't know if that's possible, but you could still do a $5 Friday. It just may not be through Venmo.
Well, you could always do like being able to do payments on Facebook and Instagram.
No, well, we have a donation button on our
Yeah,
website.
and the
So
website.
yeah, so you could just use the website till we figure out this Venmo, but it says you need to, in order to have a Venmo account, it has to be a personal account. And if you're gonna do a business account, you have to be selling something, and we're not selling anything. So those were when we Googled it.
Gotcha.
So, and then the other things, possible events for 2022, we'd like to maybe in the summer host a concert on the lawn. Karen Holmes said about a spring 5K race or walk, something we could do in the spring through the town. I know that's a lot of work because Betsy's friend, you offered to speak about that. But that's a lot of work, but whatever. She said she'd look into it. Hosting brunches for college students. That was an idea we were gonna look into.
Specifically to do what when you say brunches? Students.
Reverend Kate had mentioned it, but
That was
it's
my idea.
yeah, you would try to link it to their food, their swipes or whatever that they use, but I don't know how you, first of all, I don't know how you do that. And then also
Yeah, that's
college students, when you invite them for a brunch, I mean, you need to know a head count and if they're even going to show up, if they've partied on a Friday.
Well, it would have to be every Sunday. It would have to be every Sunday, same thing we serve every single Sunday. We'd have to really market it a lot. There's a church and there are churches that do this, and it would have to be a set fee. It would have to be super streamlined. The people, you
but you have to know if they're going to actually show up.
It would be for fall of 2022. This would be at least a year of planning, but it would be a regular thing, that just becomes known. That people
can they buy ahead of time?
I was going to say, can they subscribe and have a lunch of the club or something?
Yes, I love that idea. Subscribing to a brunch, that sounds so fun.
Yeah, they would have to do that because we can't just say we're going to make
unless we get someone who
brunches
says,
and then you don't know if anybody's
fantastic idea. You've got a person, you've got the budget, you've got it streamlined, you've got a meal card figured out. I mean, this is why it's a year in advance, but you could have someone who says, we may know people who say, you need X amount of dollars to just kick it off. Yes, we'll help you with that. So I think it's something to plan for a long time, but if it could work, my gosh, I think you could have lines out the door with your quiche, Martine. I'm not kidding. Your quiche is and it could be apple.
If we did fruit, pie of the month or quiche of the month or
my gosh, Martine, I'm not even kidding. Yeah, I could see people being like, I want to learn how to cook that. Can I pay you to teach me how to cook that? Because that is so amazing. It's the best quiche I've ever had.
Yeah, one other
Oh,
thing is we looked, we did a fellowship where we sold tickets with the diocese when we went to for the concert, when we saw the Vienna Boys Choir. So that was something we could do as a fellowship. I don't know how far people are willing to go, but the Ballet of Hartford does the Nutcracker at Christmas time, the Schubert, Westport Country Playhouse, the Klein. A lot of those, like Westport Country Playhouse right now is all virtual shows. So this is all next year or moving forward. Maybe rethinking the Apple Festival, because I know people are worried about the church losing their identity through the Apple Festival or losing the Apple Festival. So, right now we'll call it a fall festival and host something, but just and try to maybe do things a little different. Maybe, I had one of the cottage industry. I had a woman bake a cake this past weekend, and she goes to the farmers markets, and she's, there's plenty of people who like to participate. I think in our Apple Festival, it doesn't always have to be vendors that sell clothes and jewelry, but maybe we could tap that and make the festival a little different. And as far as Apple Festival, there's no apples unless you want to peel. And I already spoke to Martha about that. And she said the last time they peeled for the month of August, and you had 100 pies. That's a lot of work for 100 pies. And you need a lot of volunteers while you're doing it, because someone's peeling, slicing. It's a whole, she said you need at least 12 people each time. So, and that's when they did it one day. So for us to make 340 pies, John said it's 400 pounds of apples. So that's a lot to peel. So I don't know. And right now we don't have parking to host a big event, because Tashua Knolls Golf Course, the parking lot that we use is now being used to cut up trees.
But if we spread that throughout the year though, Lisa, sorry to interrupt, if we spread that throughout the year and did something for Easter, maybe something for Mother's Day, something for Thanksgiving, something just before Christmas, and split those 300 pies up into sort of batches of 75, and they don't all have to be apple, by the way, but whatever's amenable and we think will sell, then we can sort of split up the money that we'd make on those pies. We could still do it, but with our new kitchen, and just do it a different way, just
that means either peeling it, or you're not going to make apples. You're going to do something different. But right now the vendors John used are out of business. So the only thing I could find at the restaurant place in Milford that I went to is they have frozen peaches and they have frozen cherries. They don't carry, and they're small. They're not like big bulk bags, but that's, I don't know.
Well, like Tom said, maybe we just have to, Marcy, we have to reimagine, and it may be a fruit pie festival.
Or we do what Monroe did, which was outsource it.
Yeah, we looked into that. John Flater looked into Chavez Bakery, and they said that they would make the pies for us, possibly $7 a pie, and they're 10-inch, but they would make them, and then we would sell them
for 15, 20.
And then we'd have to, but they're not homemade. We were the only church in the area doing homemade. Everyone else buys from Lyman's and puts $5.
We'd have to see what they taste like. That they could be.
Oh yeah, we'd have to try it out first, see if they
have good stuff.
Yeah, Monroe does with Oronoke.
Yeah, Oronoke. Yeah.
And they're not as good as our pies, but they sell. That's the point.
They're good. They're still good.
Yeah. Do the other Episcopal churches do an apple festival? I know Grace doesn't, right? Did we ever think of partnering together and doing it?
There's a strawberry festival in Monroe. Is it the Monroe? Is like next weekend.
Yeah, it's this Saturday. Yeah.
We should go up and spy.
Mark usually does.
That's their apple festival too. And so I do kind of wonder if maybe we want to think about a different niche, you know,
Yeah.
Pumpkins, Christmas
Oh.
trees. There's lots of different
Yeah, it
niches.
doesn't have to be, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I want to be mindful too of time and
Yeah, it's 7:01.
One
Okay.
other thought, didn't Paige do a talent show one night?
No, it's an art show.
Show? Okay.
Don't
Was it
know.
art?
But we've done talent shows in the
Talent
past.
shows are fun, but I don't know if that would work.
We have done them.
They would work at the Congregational Church in Fairfield with their 3,000 people,
right.
6 of us, you know, doing a pyramid or what have you. I don't know.
There's lots of ideas.
Yeah.
Lisa, you've done incredible
Oh my
work.
God.
Like, reimagining all this. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's
We can do 100 little things. It doesn't have to, I mean, doesn't have to be a big 2-day festival, but I think that's
and
what.
it maybe shouldn't be at this point for a
Well,
lot.
yeah, maybe, you know, I know this year was a break, rethink, you know, rejuvenate
Yeah.
and come up with some new ideas.
Cheese and wine, or, you know, and
Ooh, a wine
I
taste.
thought of doing
something
a
like
port
that.
tasting, a port tasting
Yes,
Side
I know.
note.
You know what? They have
Do a new
cocktail
port
trucks now.
for our communion and do a little port tasting with a nice little band and yes, cheese, bit of quiche.
Yeah, that's why I thought, a concert on the lawn, and now they have cocktail trucks. I don't know if you've seen them. Because yeah, they have these little I saw one on the highway, and they actually pull up,
Yeah.
and that, you know, the top comes down and it's a full
Good.
bar, and you can pick the wines you want, or there was
love
another
that.
one, it's like a whiskey bar. They're all different themes.
Oh Lord, I don't know about that. That
Yeah, so, you know.
Oh, we
People
should
be
actually
falling down
have the
in the parking
Christchurch. We should have the Christchurch traveling bar, and like, you know, we go from place to place making money.
Yeah, John Flater has a pickup truck, and the other
He does,
John,
not
right?
anymore, not anymore. He sold
You
it.
can get you can
So
get your
there's pickup-
Budweiser outside. You can get your port inside, and then we have wine on the back 40. So pick your flavor.
But those pizza trucks, like the Firehouse
They're fun.
truck, people
Yeah.
love those. They are a real crowd pleaser.
Yeah,
I love them. Yeah.
And then have an ice cream truck come later.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if we hold-
They call
Yeah,
them.
we could do a fellowship dinner and just sell tickets, but hire the pizza truck and the wine truck, and
That's
you know,
right.
it's where the men like Mark and John, they're not
Yes.
always at the grill or in the kitchen,
Yes.
because
I love it.
because last Wednesday for the barbecue, no one cooked. We cooked, but we cooked at home, and everyone brought stuff, and John didn't have to grill anything because there was chicken and sausage and peppers and quiche.
Perfect.
And so it was
Yeah.
really nice. So he
Good.
he didn't have to cook.
That's good.
Oh.
So Jane, next steps. I mean, I have a bunch of meeting notes here.
I
of
was
what we've
taking
been
notes
talking
too,
about,
yeah.
and I know you do too. I'll share it with you, and then we could maybe talk. But what are your thoughts about next steps? I mean, I think that, you know, this whole idea of a new engagement strategy, I think is a perfect time. I think having Susan and I work with, it's like Susan and I be the guinea pigs for St. George's and start putting some of what we talked about, these steps into place. I think this idea of identifying people to engage on an individual basis, whether it's a cold call or another, you know, a targeted one, I, you know, clearly want some, you know, help from those of you who know the congregation better than I do. But I think some of this is a good idea. And I think this time of year, you know, going into June and July is a perfect time to have that kind of a discussion. And then, you know, how could we pour out to the community? How to, you know, fundraising and things of that sort. So those are my 4 next steps.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Good. Okay.
Sounds great, actually.
Yeah, sounds
Great.
good.
I think it's a good
I
start.
know we talked about brainstorming outreach efforts too, to identify if there were folks that wanted, you know, have other things that we want to engage in and make sure it's not, December heavy too.
Yes,
Yeah.
And maybe have like a follow-up, either email or string or conversation about different organizations we can reach out to.
For example, all our quilts, as far as I know, and our lovely quilters, they go to hospitals. What about the homeless shelters? People, who really need the warmth. We can branch out a bit more in that respect. And with the refugee, Iris up in New Haven, and sort of making bedspreads for refugees who've just come to this country and they have nothing.
I know.
Something that's, made for them and is just for them, and it's not an old cast off.
I have
Yeah.
a friend who works with Iris, and I tried to give her toys, and she said they can't do anything that's unusual, because all the families talk and they say, "Oh, you got a quilt," or "Oh, you got a dollhouse," or "You got a games for your kids." I didn't get that, and then it creates problems.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. You arrive there with your cartload of stuff, and there's a whole heap of people, and they all want to help you carry the stuff in and up the stairs and into the building. And they're all, and that they're just desperate for things, and it's heartbreaking because they're kind of wanting to sort of be the first ones on the scene when things are, and it doesn't quite work like that. And it was a eye-opener. And I'm going back 11 years now.
but I think it's an idea we shouldn't just lose. I know I've run into the same thing, but maybe there's some way we can do that. So,
and adopting a family, we've tried to do that.
Yeah. Trumbull just will not respond to me. So
Maybe
we'll keep going.
We'll pester them until they break
But I
down.
don't know if we should have a quick sort of half-hour follow-up with brainstorming ideas and kind of eat month by month, or do we want to do that via email? That would be the only thing I might add.
I think in person would be great, and whether it's this group or a smaller group, subgroup thereof. But I think maybe in a couple of weeks, because Susan and I find that helps us to keep ongoing, to keep us on track.
Yeah.
Besides what we do to each other. Yeah.
Accountability.
It's a team building exercise.
Yeah.
It's really foundational.
Or maybe when we say like we want to have a trivia night after she's getting married, right? Isn't
Me?
Jessica?
Yeah.
you're getting married? Jessica, you're getting married
Again.
Again.
Oh, next year. It's not. It's
No,
not.
no,
The
no,
second time in a year.
No, it's this year. We're finally having our wedding reception in September.
Oh, okay. So so we can hit you up for trivia like in October.
I mean,
I want to do more than one
The
trivia.
honeymoon's over.
No, but we need her to do the. Yeah, but I'm
I
just
can
saying to
do it
host
before then. It just can't be like within that couple week range of when
Yeah.
I'm going to be in that.
Yeah.
I have so much to
Yeah,
do
bridezilla.
mode.
Yeah, well, like I'm saying, so if we say we're having a trivia night, then maybe we can have a meeting. You know what I'm saying? If we know like a few weeks beforehand and say, we're gonna have it at the church and be organized and,
Yep. That'd be good.
yeah.
The big thing that I would need to know is what do you want the theme to be? If it's generalized trivia, I've got so much already on my computer. It's just a
Oh,
matter
all right,
of,
so you need a targeted.
but if
topic.
it's like an actual theme that we're going to do, then
Like 60s or something like whatever.
yes,
Oh.
I
exactly.
feel like we
Episcopal
should
church
have
history.
multiple too.
Oh,
I
church
sort of feel like
history?
October, November.
Church
December,
history.
something.
I think church history, nobody's going
Maybe and I can do that.
Okay, I want to be on Betsy's
out in
team.
the public. Yeah.
And Reverend Jane.
How about it?
that's stacked.
How about a Jeopardy thing where you have all different categories?
Well,
You
I
can be
feel it's
Alexandra Quebec.
7:10. So just based on this discussion alone, I think we need a follow-up meeting.
Yeah.
And yes, just be
Okay.
respectful of time and
Susan and
yeah.
I will own that. Good. Okay.
all right.
Jane, 2 words.
Thanks, everybody.
Finish this off, please.
What's that?
2 words.